photoperiodism and phototropism in plants, ferns, and lianas. Ferns are plants that are affected by photoperiodism, and they are short-day plants, meaning they grow in a continuous period of darkness. Because it is a short-day plant, ferns are often founded in shaded areas in the tropical rainforest. In comparison, lianas are simply vines that experience phototropism. In the tropical rainforest, lianas has roots in the forest floor, and they often climb up the tree to receive more sunlight. Um, and they can do so because they have phototropin. Phototropins absorb the light in the blue range of the spectrum of light, and when absorbed, they cause the plant hormone called auxin to be transported to unequal parts of the plant, causing the plant itself to change in shape. Plant responds to herbivory, inga tree, and sawfly larvae. Sawfly larvae are herbivores that eat the leaves of the inga tree in the Panama rainforest, and the two species uh, have a parasite relationship, meaning one benefits off the other, while the other species that's being benefited does not receive any benefits. And inga trees have a chemical defense mechanism to protect themselves. The chemical defense mechanism is to produce toxins that can poison the salt larvae when they eat the leaves of the inga tree. Parent and offspring interactions. Amazon River dolphin. Amazon River dolphins nurses their offspring for more than 1 year after their offsprings are born. And after that, the offspring can be on their own and can live without the nursing of their parents. Pack behavior. Spider monkey. The spider monkeys usually gather in groups of 2 or 3 dozens, and by being in groups, spider monkey can defend their food from another group of spider monkey, therefore allowing them to have a better chance of surviving. Kin selection. Genus Megalopta. Genus Megalopta is a species of sweet bee, and they usually die after they sting the predator. This is because their stinger would be stuck to the predator, which therefore would lead to their death. And when genus Megalopta sting the predator, they sacrifices themselves to protect the other individual within their population. And this um, will ultimately benefit the fitness of the other individuals and their relatives.
So for response to environment, in the tropical rainforest, we have taxis and kinesis in animals. Taxis is basically directional movement that an animal does, and a prime example of this in the tropical rainforest are piranhas. Piranhas are attracted to noise like splashing, because that indicates that there's prey there and that there's food. So the piranha will do directional movement in the direction where the food is. They'll go towards the food. And that's an example of taxis. An example of kinesis is zebrafish larva. So kinesis is basically when the animal, in this case the zebrafish larva, moves around non-directionally. And in this case, the kinesis is caused by a lack of light. These zebrafish larvae have these cells in their brain that tells if there's light or not, and if there's no light in the area, then the zebrafish larvae will move around in a random direction until they go into an area with light, in which they will shut off their kinesis and stop randomly moving. In interspecies interactions, we have territorial markings in mammals, and the prime example of this are leopards. So both sexes of leopards mark territory with urine and calls. Females mark territory based on prey and den sites. So basically, they mark the territory based on where the prey is, so they can feast on the prey. And that's an example of the interaction. And then males select territory based on prey and availability of females. Leopards also mark territory to ward off intruders, whether that be intruders like fellow leopards or intruders like other species. We also have in interspecies innate and learned behavior. We have foraging in bees and other animals. So for foraging in bees, we have Apis dorsata, or the giant bumblebee, which lives in a tropical rainforest and subtropical regions of the world. Apis dorsata forages on flowers, and it collects nectar for its colony. And basically it is influenced by a whole lot of things. So they'll go towards flowers with the color they like or the smell they like. And for foraging other animals, we have the giant anteater, which lives in the rainforest of Brazil. And they forage on ants in the jungle. And they make decisions on what types of ants they want to eat and consume based on like the types of defenses the ant has and how easy it is to eat the ant, and whether there's like soldier ants that can fight back. So to compare the two, both bees and anteaters forage for food, and they have preferences for what type of food, whether that be flowers or ants. But they also kind of diverge because bees have a mutualistic relationship with flowers because bees are pollinators, so they spread the pollen everywhere, while the anteaters don't have that relationship with ants. They have like a predator-prey relationship. They eat the ants. And for interspecies cooperative behavior, we have herd, flock, and schooling behavior. For herd, we have banteng in the tropical rainforest in like Southeast Asia. They form herds of 2 to 40 animals, and there's one adult male that leads the pack. And then they often move, depending on what time of year it is and the availability of food, they move from the tropical jungle, the bamboo jungle, or the dry grasslands. And that's the primary reason why they herd, is so they can cooperate in this manner and go to different places to eat. Macaws are flocks, and they live in South America. They gather in flocks of 10 to 30. They sleep together, they forage and prey for food together, and they're very social animals, and they make calls and squawks, stuff like that, to communicate with one another. Neon tetras are a type of fish that live in the Amazon, and they form schools. And the reason why they form schools is for defensive purposes, because they can intimidate a larger enemy by forming this, or they could, just look larger or fight back against an enemy. So to compare and contrast all three of these, the banteng herd usually only has one male bull, while macaws and neon tetras don't have that restriction. Banteng and macaws like herd or flock to find new sources of food or to move about, while neon tetras mostly flock for defensive purposes, as well as macaws. They also flock as protection from predators. They also all have various degrees of communication, but macaws communicate the most. They have their own sort of calls and different signals they give to each other. So they're all very unique, even though they all have the same general basic behavior.
So for the nocturnal species, I chose the eyelash viper, which is number 6. They're solitary creatures that are active during the night, which is what nocturnal means. And for diurnal, I picked number 5, the Asian vine snake. They're also arboreal and solitary snakes, and they move through trees during the day, which is what diurnal means. For coloration in intraspecies interactions, I did the damselflies. It's number 14. And the coloration of female damselflies vary between red and green. In the wild, even though red is a more abundant morph, green females are observed to mate more frequently than reds. This shows the connections between the red coloration and the maturity of the individual, and the red coloration serves as a warning sign to potential mates that the female has not yet reached maturity. This reduces sexual uncomfortability for females and unprofitable mating for males, since males would know to only mate with the green damselflies and not the reds. For colonies and swarming, I chose the army ants, which is number 23. And in a period of 3 weeks, the army ant colony sweeps the area around the temporary nest as the mothers lay egg. As soon as the eggs hatch and produce larvae, the colony begins their swarming and raid. Normally, this lasts a couple of weeks, and the swarms can move as wide as 100 feet and change shape as it advances. The swarms are formed by the ants hooking their arms together, forming a shield that protects the queen and the larvae. This method ensures that the young are raised safely. For predator warnings, I chose the golden dart frog, which is number 10. And even though it's very small, just 2-inch long, the poison in just one golden dart frog is enough to kill 10 grown men. And their deliberately ostentatious yellow coloration warns predators that their bodies contain deadly toxins. This method is called aposematic coloration.
Okay, so for fight or flight response, we have sloths. So the sloth is up here, and then we have a leopard down here. And so sloths have a very low metabolic rate, which makes them move very slowly. And because of this, sloths basically only have a fight response because they're too slow to run away. So because the sloths are so slow, the only thing they can do is use their claws and teeth against predators. So in this image, the sloth is kind of using its claws to wrap its claws around the leopard's neck as the leopard is attacking it. Okay, and then next for coloration in flowers, we have the Phragmipedium orchid or the sliver orchid and hoverflies. So the orchid has black spots here that look like aphids on the exterior of its cup, and female hoverflies, like this one right here, are attracted to this flower because they usually lay their eggs in aphid colonies. So once the fly is inside the cup of the flower to lay its eggs, it can spread the pollen it potentially is holding onto the receptive surface of the orchid's stigma, which is lower down in the cup, and this will then pollinate the orchid. And next we have the white-browed warbler, and so this species lives in the undergrowth, so visual communication can be difficult at times, so they communicate using sounds. And so males have two main pitches, signals, and so one of them is a high-pitched contact call and the other is a territorial call. And then for courtship and mating, we have birds of paradise. And so birds of paradise are dimorphic, which means the males have bright colored plumage designs while females have more drab ones. And so in order to attract the female as their mate, the males have to display their bright and voluminous plumage to the female, as you can see here. And then they kind of just dance around and call loudly while showing their plumage.